So this has been what I guess Richard, Devs, and otherwise have been working on. Just this is PulseX is like the third or fourth one to come out. First it was the bridge and the go.hex.com, and that was like a whole big thing. And then we were just warming up apparently, because then we went on to PulseX and we went on to the Launchpad for validators, and then even the Block Explorer. So yeah, you're looking at a list, just as Richard said, a list of links to run your own code. You've always been running your own code before for products in a lot of different ways, but now you have two options to use PulseX. You can use the IPFS link, which is literally just, I'm going to do a video on this to explain more about IPFS and like how to deploy projects and stuff like that on there. But it's basically just the code, the same code that was being hosted before, the same code that's you can run on your desktop and stuff. It's just on running on a decentralized website, basically a decentralized network of servers and nodes and stuff. A lot of people have said, think of it like BitTorrent, where you can't just get they can't just go down and shut down a website, shut down a front end. So we're more shutdown proof in that way too, with all these apps. And yeah, the hash you see there, that just maps to the version that is being deployed. So you see IPFS, and then right above it, v102. So there's, going to be probably, there was versions before that. There's going to be versions after that. And every time a new version is deployed, that hash will change, because it's a unique identifier, just like it is in every other part of cryptocurrency and cryptography. It is just a way of uniquely identifying code or resource or otherwise. So that's what the hash maps to.
So, and let's pause there real quick, because I want to save a little more of the technical talk for a little bit later, so we can kind of, baby step our way into this. Because there's a lot going on, and we start talking about hash, and we start even for some people, that are going to watch this video because they are curious about, what happened to the front end. I want them to be able to watch this video and really get into it and understand right off the bat. So let's even just start with these links. So these three links, do we know where they came from? We know where they go. Like ultimately, guys, if we click this link here, and then I have to share this tab instead, then it does bring you to the PulseX front end, right? But this is what you're going to see now instead of the original PulseX direct to the application. So what you're getting into there was interesting. I want to understand here, when people are looking at this, what really is like, what gives the ability for these links to be accessed, and using IPFS specifically in simplistic terms, like why are we using, I guess, this here?
We're using it because the devs, Richard, whoever they don't want to host the front ends anymore. So instead of hosting the front ends, they're saying, okay, there's this decentralized way that people can access the front ends. So let's just upload the code there. And then now everyone could just use that. And now that comes with, and I'm sure we'll get into it, a whole can of worms of, okay, now there's not this centralized place that I can look at the URL bar and see that I feel safe interacting with. That's a whole thing that I've been working on as well. But that was the decision. Ruthless decentralization. This is clearly, we can talk about the onboarding aspects of it too that have been talked about, but it is completely and utterly prioritizing decentralization over everything else. So you're not going to be able to go to app.pulsex.com and do your trading, because it's not hosted there. It's just a list of links. You click on one of those, that fires up you get the data from IPFS node that's delivering it, just a decentralized website, and now you get to interact, do everything completely on your own. No one's holding your keys or anything, just like before.
Exactly. And I do think from a decentralization perspective, this is pretty cool. Like, I don't think I've ever heard of anything quite like this happening for any ecosystem, really. I mean, I'm not the best to ask on that front, because I haven't spent a lot of time in many other ecosystems, but just off the cuff, like I haven't. And I think this is really cool in terms of, longevity and SEC proofing this, this ecosystem. And it is impressive that it's come this far. And really, like we were talking about off screen, it's like, it is still fairly simple. Like I'll show you. When you come here, if you ignore the IPFS, all this stuff here, and you just think about it as, what do I have to do to still trade on PulseX? And stay to the end of the stream, guys, because RH has a special announcement I want you guys to all be here for, because it's awesome. And you guys got to stick around for this. So stay till the end, and You won't regret it. But back to this here. We clicked on the first one here. If we click on the second one, nftstorage.link, we're going to go to the same thing. And as you can see, you click any of these three, and essentially you're going to go to the PulseX website. Now, if we were to go to go.hex.com, we're going to find the same thing, right? If we go to PulseChain, and just to show you here, if we go to this guy here, which is now the hex.com app, we're basically still connecting to this. So realistically, if you're still familiar to this ecosystem, if this isn't brand new to you, this is going to be no problem for you to navigate, as long as you just understand that these are basically portals to the app. These are just decentralized versions of them. And the next thing that's interesting here is that you can run these from your desktop. So now this isn't something I have done for myself, but I'd love to find out from you, Max, like what goes into something like this? What is it actually? Is it like an application, like, you're opening Microsoft Word or something like that, and you're just running it on your computer? How does this all work if you were to choose to do something like running it from your desktop?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're opening a link. So the link won't be from IPFS. It will be a link that is listing on your local computer. So the difference, so if you click on IPFS link, it'll go to that link. It'll go to that site that's hosting it, decentralized, all that stuff. If you download any of these on your computer, I've tested on Mac, for example, it'll just give you a program, and maybe it's packaged different ways. Maybe one's exe, the other's like a script or whatever. They all work the same way. They just start this little server on your computer. You run your own PulseX server, literally, and then it'll pop up a window, and it'll just, instead of saying like, random long link, hash, whatever, .ipfs.link or whatever, it'll say localhost on a certain port. And a port is just like a way of communicating in different ways on the computer. So yeah, you still get a link. You still using a browser. It works exactly the same way, except you are running the server. Instead of the decentralized node, you accessing that over the internet, you're running your own server locally on your computer. No one else can access it unless you jump through a bunch of hoops and make them able to do that. Just for your own personal computer use, and you can interact with the blockchain that way, as long as you have internet connection, obviously. But it's just accessing your local computer, and then need the internet to talk to the blockchain and all that stuff.
That's actually so cool. I think as far as tools, because here's the thing, is that we're in terms of a global, we call it, yeah, I guess the macroeconomic side of things, the macro government side of things, regulations worldwide, we're at an interesting time. Things are shifting in an interesting direction. And I think if you are, up on what's been going on over the past maybe decade or even two, and kind of how things, many decades, it's all been from way, way back. It's all been going the same direction. But if you are noticing, or even if you're just coming into this now, you can see a pattern, and there's going to be more regulation coming. And when that happens, you might not agree with the regulation. You might, but you might not. And if you don't, this is a way that you can actually keep control, have a little bit of sovereignty still with your decisions, your choices, and be able to interact with what you want on these blockchain financial systems without having to worry about it being controlled. And I think that's an amazing tool to have at your disposal. Whether you use it or not is obviously up to you, but to have this here, I think is awesome. And I appreciate it. And I think that, there's drawbacks to everything, but there's also pluses when you make correct decisions. Like we've talked about, I think in previous streams, I think on your channel, actually, trade-offs, right? There's a trade-off to everything. And yes, from an onboarding perspective, I do think there's going to be a little bit of a hit in some way. Like maybe it's small, maybe it's big. We'll see. Time will tell. None of us have the answers right now. It's likely that there's some impact to a degree, whatever degree that is. I think that the trade-offs long-term could actually be far more beneficial when regulation comes down and all sorts of stuff starts to happen where it gets harder to get into crypto in the long term. What do you have to say on that front? Like, do you think that the short-term, long-term game is absolutely worth it? Do you think that the game is being played right here in terms of where everything is going with the regulations wise? All that. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anything else you had to share on that front?
Oh yeah. I mean, if we're going to brand ourselves the ecosystem of freedom, what epitomizes that more than being like, oh, regulations here, regulations there. Oh, people say people's doing work for other people. No, it's not, because you can clearly look and see there's no one doing work for anyone. There never has been, but especially now, you couldn't even point to anything like that. So the self-sovereignty part is important. Again, we don't know what we're going to see with regulation otherwise coming up, but I can clearly imagine some hopefully not, but some BS regulations or whatever come around, and we see Richard and everyone tweeting out, not only Hex not affected, PulseChain not affected, because we have made this huge leap to go to decentralization. Literally, even the block explorer, I was like, I could see the bridge, I could see all the dApps, PulseX, maybe all that stuff. And now we're doing the block explorer. It's literally like, hey, this is the ecosystem of decentralization, true DeFi, real DeFi, as our friend Somi talks about as well. So big step. Now, with big steps come big growing pains, big ability to zoom out and be like, hey, does everyone else get this? Because I don't think they do. I think, first of all, our own community has been struggling to figure out what HiPFS is. And finally, we're coming around, you, me, and everyone else is like educating them, like, hey, here's how this works. Here's how to use it. All the features are still there. All that's good. However, we need to onboard more people than are already here. Like, onboarding means you get new people to come in, and new people coming in, they may not have the same ideals or understanding or technical ability, or just able to wrap their head around. There isn't this clean URL they've been taught over and over and over to trust, that says, this is not trouble, this is not scam, this is not going to get me in a mess, this is not going to drain my wallet. After that happens to people all the time for many different reasons, including interacting with weird looking websites. It comes back to, I think it's hard for the community too, because we've been in the weeds so much. It's really hard to zoom out and be like, what is a new person experiences coming in? What do they see? What do they need? How do you create the least friction possible? So clearly, this change, decentralization, boom, good, landing page, great, set us up for the future. But now, once we're here, how would you onboard somebody? How would you tell somebody, hey, come? Like, would you just give them? I've heard people talk about, nobody uses PulseX when they're going to the ecosystem to get the best deal on trading. They use Pitius or something else. How would you even onboard someone right now when you give them a link? And again, everything in their, even me, my spidey sense is like, hey, am I going to put $1 million on this link that, oh, it's IPFS. What does that mean? How does that tell me anything's good? Like, how do I know, everything's safe here? This big change happened. Again, investors, I don't think they like big changes. And if they are okay with big changes, they want assurances. They want security. They want to make sure, hey, they don't want to be first. Maybe they don't want to be first. They don't want to be the ones experimenting with this stuff. They just want it to work and get ROI and stuff on their investments. So yeah, that's what I ask you too, is like, how do you, when you're bringing people in now, I know, we'll talk about a little bit later about how I'm trying to help bring people in, but how do you do it? And now that you've seen these big changes?
Yeah, it's difficult. And you raised this is such a good point. Like, people are going to come to these sites. Like, you got to imagine, and you brought this up actually before we came on, is like, and I'll put it in the way of, imagine your grandma comes on here, and instead of going to go.hex.com, she now has this website. Well, she's either going to call you and be like, what the hell am I looking at? Or she's going to get frazzled if she's doing it on her own because you just were guiding it to her, and she's going to walk away because she doesn't know there's so much going on here. I mean, and I think we need to understand that this is going to be something that's going to be a wall for a lot of people. Like, simplicity is key for a lot of these things. And we don't have simplicity. It's so easy for people to get pushed away if they're, trying to just, maybe they're not already investors. They want to try it out, right? Like, think about new products, right? If a new product comes on the market and it becomes too difficult or something changes, it'll get abandoned real quick. It could be the best technology, right? But if things get too difficult to operate, right, then it just becomes a nightmare and people kind of walk away. They go to something else that maybe isn't a superior product, but people end up going somewhere else. That being said, though, this is like the initial phase of this right now.